All right, folks, good evening. Still got some folks in the back. Come on down and take a seat. This is the November meeting of the Nevada County Camera Club and our last meeting of 2022. Yeah, for the newer folks, we do not meet in the month of December each year. So we've got two groups tonight. We've got, of course, you guys here in person, and then we do have a Zoom option tonight for those at home. Hello, everybody. And thanks to Fred Finney, who's volunteered tonight to run the camera, because David Wong is also presenting tonight. So if you're on Zoom, we ask if you have a question this evening, please put it in the chat, okay? All right, so first, everybody have a good Thanksgiving? Hopefully, okay, yes, lots of good food and family. So, all right, so I'm going to start by welcoming, and I'm going to ask our membership chair, Barbara Summers. Do we have anyone to introduce tonight? And okay, behind you. Their second visit, all right. Welcome to them. Can you stand and say their names, or do we? This is Peggy and Steve. Peggy and Steve. Welcome, Peggy and Steve. So glad you're here. I'm sorry, say the name again. Clark? Clark Davenport. I bet related to Darby Davenport? Okay. All right, welcome. Welcome, you guys. All right, and I didn't say my name. I'm Rachel Rosenthal, president of the Camera Club for this year. So this is my last meeting as president. So, all right. Several announcements tonight. The first one has to do with our membership for 2023. And as many of you may have known, I sent out an email too, the board has been working very hard to review our membership policies and did some investigation in terms of the liability for club members. And so we looked at other clubs, how they handled their liability, and realized that it says hold harmless on our current membership form. You may or may not remember signing it, but you did if you're a member of the club. But the board realized that hold harmless statement needed to be more comprehensive. And so what we're asking for current members is we're asking that for 2023, we're asking you all to renew for 2023, and the price has gone down. It's down from $35 to $30 for 2023. And when you renew, we're going to ask you to take 3 steps. Now, you cannot do this tonight. It's not quite ready, but it's all going to be on the website. There's going to be 3 things we're going to ask you to do. 1, update your profile. That's something that's been on the website for a long time. But again, in reviewing the database, there's a lot of things that are missing, addresses, some phone numbers. Check your email, make sure everything is accurate in terms of your information for the club. And then we're also going to ask every single member to sign one of the new, more comprehensive release of liability forms. And then third, ask you to pay via PayPal. So those will be 3 links that will be loaded onto the club's website once Dave Arstein gives me the go, that they're up and working, and then I will send you guys out an email saying it's time to renew for 2023. So be watching for that. If you're a new member, like we have three guests tonight, if you choose to join, what's going to happen for new members is Dave Arstein has written a script. There will be a link on the club's website. You will click Join Now, or whatever phrase he uses. It will take you through all the steps you need to join the club. So new members, it's a 1-click. For existing members, we have 3 links we need you to check in to complete for 2023. But that will get everybody up to speed. All right? So more to come on that. All right, some dates you will want to be aware of. Wednesday is the Granucci deadline for submitting for the Granucci exhibition next March and April. Deadline is midnight Wednesday, and the theme is Visions and Monochrome. So be sure to get your submissions to exhibitions@nccameraclub.com. And let's see, you'll be notified by, what did we say, folks? Towards the end of December. Okay, what's up? That's most pressing. And then Dave McClellan was going to talk about Gold Country on camera, and it's going to be Kathy. All right, come on up, Kathy, talk about that one.
All right, thank you. Hey, everybody. So Dave McClellan was supposed to be here to talk about this, but he's recovering from the flu, and so we wish him to feel better. And he is feeling better, just needs a little more energy. So you get me instead. How many of you have not participated in Gold Country on camera? Raise your hand. Ooh, that side of the room. Okay. How many have participated in Gold Country on camera? That side of the room. It's really not quite that. Okay. So for those of you who have participated in Gold Country on camera, did you enjoy it? Yay! Say yay. Okay, I'm not going to ask. Oh, very enthusiastic. Okay, so we have another opportunity for those of you who have not participated in Gold Country on camera. And so those of you who are new to our club may say, what is she talking about? So let me tell you really quickly. I just want to get you enthusiastic. I want to get you on your calendars and say, this is what I want to do, because it's a very fun activity for our club, and it gets your creative juices flowing, and we have a really good time with it. Plus, we have a kickin' party at the Grass Valley Courtyard Suites. So if you like parties, you better join. So it's a photographic challenge for our members only, and it is in Grass Valley and Nevada City. Dave McClellan put together a map that is gridded of both those towns, and we do a random number generator for all of you who sign up. Yes, you do have to sign up officially, and you get assigned a grid in one of those towns, and then you get a whole week to go out and shoot in that grid. And you have to stay in the grid. You can't bring, like, naked models in. I know, I'm so sorry. But you have to stay in the grid, and then you get 3 to 4 weeks to create your masterpiece and get it printed in whatever form you want. Then at Grass Valley Courtyard Suites, we put them up on the walls. We have judges who come in. We award awards, and you get your prizes, and then they give us a big party at the end. And so the shooting happens in February so that we can put up our show April 1st at the Grass Valley Courtyard Suites. So it's very fun. And of course, this ties on to Photography Month in Grass Valley and Nevada City, and we participate as a club, right? So let's see, no restrictions on type or style of presentation. It's a creative challenge. And no restrictions on processing your art, but it needs to be based on the photograph. So it's designed to encourage you to try something different in your photography, to step out of your comfort zone, and believe me, I've had more complaints in the past about, that was hard, but I loved it. So it helps you learn by trying new ideas, and we have a separate website set up for those of you who are already joined us in the past. You're one of the members, but for those of you who are so excited now to join us, there will be an email coming out letting you know where to sign up and when to sign up. So you don't have to take any notes right now. I just want you to keep it in your awareness and join us for the next Gold Country on Camera Challenge. This will be like the 5th year. Is that crazy or what? Get a prize, get in the newspaper, woo, and we're going to have fun. So how many of you who have not participated are now ready to join our challenge? Woo! Yay! All right, thanks, Rachel. Sure.
And for the newer folks, the Camera Club has 3 activities which are part of Photography Month. So every year now, the month of April, is Photography Month. And so last year, the club had 3 events, and we're repeating those same 3 events for next spring, which are the exhibition at Center for the Arts in the Granucci Gallery. That's the Visions in Monochrome. The second is the Gold Country On-Camera Challenge at the exhibition at Courtyard Suites. And then we'll have photo walks run by Ray Lurkey in both Grass Valley and Nevada City. So we're very excited to have those same 3 events for next year. And also, if you get a chance to go by Center for the Arts, they produced a magazine called Backstage Magazine. It's like a glossy magazine. The Nevada County Camera Club has a full page in there, and I was hoping to have a copy tonight, but I don't. If you're by there, go in and pick one up. They're beautiful showing for the club. Some of our club members' images are used in the magazine too, so very exciting. All right, so next up, we have this month being the last meeting of the year. We have our election for club officers, the 4 elected officers for 2023, and that's going to be run by David Wong, who's the chair of our nominations committee. So I'll turn it over to David.
Hello. So we have the privilege of having 4 people that stepped up for this. The positions that we have are for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. So we have exactly 1 person that has stepped up and said they would run for each position. So I'm going to call the people up just to stand up, and then we want to take a vote. I think, yeah, we need to take a vote after each position. So we'll do a raise of hands, and those of you who are on Zoom, if you could show yourself, and we'll count your raise of hands on Zoom. And so the first position we have is for president, and we have Mike Shea. Mike, do you want to say a few words? Grab that microphone right there. Or you want to come up? All right.
Yeah, good evening. So yeah, I'm Mike Shea. I'm running for president, unopposed apparently, and I've been a Camera Club member for 15 years. And during that time, I spent 2 years as the secretary and another 2 years as the treasurer. And my goal would be to, I got some tough act to follow here with Rachel being a president, but I hope to keep the club interesting, inspirational, and educational. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
So this is a highly technical process here. All those in favor of Mike Shea, raise your hands. Hey, I think that's everybody there, and I'm assuming the Zoom audience is. So Mike, you got a lot of fans. For vice president, we have Grace Farrig, Grace has only been a member, less than 2 years? Yeah, but she's really jumped into this, and she is running for the office of vice president. So Grace?
So I'm pretty new, but I am really excited to participate and hopefully give back in this way to this club, which has been a community that really helped me feel more at home up here. I was new to the area, and I got to connect with all of you great people, so I'm really excited to be part of the group, and I appreciate those who encouraged me to run for this, also unopposed. So looking forward to the next year. Thanks.
It'd almost be easier to ask how many oppose. How many of you would like to have Grace as our vice president? Yay! And on Zoom, I'm sure that they have all been affirmed. You win, Grace. All right, congratulations. Next, is Laura here? She's not here? Oh, okay. So what we'll do is we have for treasurer, David Nelson has stepped up for that position. And David, you want to come up?
So David, doesn't Laura, we have to vote for Laura though.
Yeah, we still do. Yeah.
Okay, for those of you who have ever been on a board, you know that the primary criteria to get on the board is a willingness to say yes. David asked me to say a few words, so a few words. I think I'm going on about 9 years in the club, probably in January, and I got a lot now. Have gotten a lot out of it, and I thought maybe I could put a little back in. Background: I'm a chemical engineer by training. Although in college I did take an accounting course. When I went to class the first day, about half the football team was in the room, and I said, "Oh, I'm getting an A," which I did. I've been treasurer of 2 other clubs in the area, so I got a little experience.
Before David even sits down, how many of you would like to have David as our treasurer? All right. All right. And I believe it's unanimous. So Laura Greenman is not here, and she is running for secretary. Laura has been secretary several times now. You can run for a position for 2 years, and then she took a break, and then she's running again. And we're really fortunate to have Laura run for secretary. So all those in favor? Hey, I don't know, Laura, if you're out there? No? All right. So that completes our officers starting January 1. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think you're good. All right, so thank you. Yes.
Seems that there's some folks that aren't muted on Zoom. They're not muted. Okay.
Oh, I see. So I'm getting a request from our video crew to ask those on Zoom to please mute yourself. Okay. All right. Well, thank you to David for running the nominations, and congratulations to Mike and to Grace and Laura and Dave. We appreciate your service to the club. So, all right, one last announcement on my behalf is some fun one. We have our annual awards celebration coming up in January, and for years we had a dinner, and then COVID hit, and we went on Zoom for the last 2 years. So we are returning to an in-person dinner, and the date is January 14th, 2023. Dinner starts at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be at the Elks Lodge in Nevada City. So it's going to be a lovely dinner. We'll give out some awards, celebrating and everybody. So big thank you to the Elks. They've been super to work with, and they're going to provide the dinner. And there's actually a no-host bar. They have a bar and a bartender, so it should be an absolutely lovely evening. So we ask you guys to please sign up. The deadline to sign up is December 19th, and Dave Arstein today put a link on the webpage along the top. So please go in, click on that, indicate whether you want it's going to be tri-tip or pasta, carnivore or herbivore, and make your payment through PayPal to get registered for the award celebration. We're hoping to have a huge turnout after 2 years on Zoom. It'll be great to come back together. So, all right. With that, any other announcements? Field trip. David Wong, you want to come up? Okay, field trips.
I know.
Oh, that's why he asked me, yeah. I didn't realize what you wrote.
So we have a field trip slated for December 4th, Sunday, for us to go out and photograph sandhill cranes and other birds down at the crane reserve down near Lodi. So we've sent out a flyer on it. If you haven't signed up, email me, call me. It is Sunday, this next Sunday. What's that? This coming Sunday, yes. This coming Sunday. And we don't know what the weather is going to be like. It's kind of, so, it may end up being changed, but for right now, it's still on. So if you want to come, we will carpool from the Safeway parking lot in downtown Grass Valley at the hour of 6 a.m. I know it's a little early, but it takes about an hour and a half to get down there, and we don't want to miss all the morning light. So we will leave promptly at 6 a.m. If you haven't signed up with me already, email me, talk to me, whatever. You need to sign the new release form, which I will send to you online. I have some of them here. I also will have a mini long lens birding session Thursday, December 1st at 3 p.m. at my studio in Grass Valley. For those of you, some of you have never shot birds or never used a long lens or want to brush up on technique. It'll be about an hour, hour and a half, and just come on, just let me know and come on over, and we'll talk all about how you get sharp photos. You know, because even though you take that long lens and stick it on the tripod, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get a sharp photo. There's a number of things to look for. And Kathy, you.
I was just wondering if you were going to record that session for people who aren't going to be able to make it.
I thought about that, and I thought, well, do I want to do what I'm doing tonight and do that and then do this and that? No, you have to come because there's a lot of things that you need to put your hands on for that. And if we have enough people, we could do it again afterwards. But 3 p.m. this coming Thursday at my place. See me at the break or whatever.
Okay. Thanks.
And I have release forms here.
Okay. And since he mentioned that, if you do sign one of the paper release forms, we are going to ask you when we do the renewal for 2023 to sign the form again online. But that will get you on the field trip. So, all right, with that, it's time to turn over the program to our Vice President, Kathy Triolo, to introduce our speakers tonight.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so normally I don't kind of tell you the background, but I'm going to tell you a little bit of background about what happened this month, because if you looked on our website, you would have seen that we actually had the new managing editor of the Union scheduled to be our speaker, Elias Funes. And he had to back out, unfortunately, because they are absolutely overwhelmed at the Union, if you can imagine. They're hiring new reporters and writers, and he's in charge of all of it. So he apologized profusely and said he couldn't do it. But we are going to get him next year. So, Grace, get him on your schedule. So, because this happened maybe 2 weeks ago, I want to thank profusely David Wong, Bill Wages, Mark Triolo, and Douglas Hooper for coming in and rescuing us and presenting a program on short notice. So let's give them all a hand right now, and then we'll give them one later, too. So I want to, I don't know that any of these guys need an introduction, and if you think you need one, I would suggest you go up and talk to them, because every single one of these people tonight has an amazing resume. They have long roots in photography and, in some cases, videography. And so rather than me rattle off biography information, you could go to our website and read what David was going to present tonight. Drones with the help of Bill and Mark. And I think it's going to be a fascinating subject and maybe inspire you to buy a drone too. Remember, it's still Cyber Monday. Right. So go home before midnight. And of course, thanks to Douglas, we get to see Burning Man 2022, which just started after 2 years. So he's got some magnificent photos to show you after the drone presentation. So without further ado, David Wong.
I'm kind of embarrassed coming up here and doing all of this. But at any rate, so drones. There's actually going to be 4 of us. George has got some photos and stuff from his drone. And it's every day I hear more and more, oh, you have a drone? Oh, you have a drone? There's a number of people in the club that have one. And it's growing by the day. And we just thought, you know, this is a little bit informal, so you have to forgive me or forgive us if we're not really super polished. And I thought we would start off, we're gonna show you some of the stuff that we've shot, both video and stills. And then We're going to talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about drones and what the whole drone world and what you have to do, what you can do, what you can't do. And then we're going to fly one inside. Now, have you all had a haircut already? Yeah, but we're going to, just so you see, it's not that mysterious. So let's go ahead and start the video, that first one. And there are a couple of short videos. And, oh, you want to turn on that mic? The microphone in front of you? Is that mic live? It's live. Okay. So that was the first one. I'll just make a few comments. As you may well recognize, we weren't in Grass Valley anymore. Those were shots from Scotland pre-trip that Bill Wages and a number of us went to last year, and those are previews of our upcoming Scotland trip in April. The other shots were from Ireland in Dingle. The basking sharks were these huge sharks that we drove out to the Atchill Island in western part of Ireland, and we flew the drone out, and we go, Jim Wilson, who was a biologist, he and his wife, he said, "Look, basking sharks." And we go, "What?" It flew out there, and these guys were about 17 to 20 feet long. The dolphins were from our Ireland trip at Dolphin Beach House. And the Mustangs were from our trip. Has it been almost 2 years ago, I think? We're going to do Mustangs again in the spring of the coming year. And there was a shot of the gallery at Viewpoint. That was shot. I shoot the drones inside regularly, and that is footage from my drone from inside a Viewpoint. And if you have any other questions, I'll Be happy to answer them afterwards. We have another video now. Oh, sure. Mark, go ahead.
Live, I guess it is. Okay, good, great. Hi, everybody. This is my good side, but you can't see it because I'm in the dark. Many of you may know that I'm a videographer as well as a still photographer, and I actually do more video than I do stills. So I thought, hey, drone is a great way to add some spice to my video pieces, because even just a couple short drone shots really adds a significant element to an otherwise routine video. So about 5 years ago, I decided to invest in one of these. I've had 4. I first got a little toy one for $100 so I could damage that one and not an expensive one while I was learning. I then got a really nice one, and I had that for a while until I crashed it into a brick wall. And then I had that replaced for $70 under insurance, was great. I then flew that one for a little while longer, and then I upgraded to what I have now, which is the DJI. They're kind of the Cadillac manufacturer. Dave will talk more about this later. This actually has a Hasselblad camera on it that has a 1-inch sensor. So the cameras on these things are getting really good. They still don't quite have the dynamic range that our DSLR cameras do, but they're getting pretty close, especially if you get a big sensor in one of these. And see, mine here is not nearly as big as Bill Wage's, because Bill has the training wheels on his. Is this yours? So David has the training wheels on, so he made it look really cool. So let's see. So the video that I'm going to show is just highlights from what I've taken over the last few years. And it's basically from the travels that I've had around the country, and even some in Sacramento that you'll see with Kathy. So you can roll that video, and I'll answer questions later after the presentations.
That was really relaxing, Mark. A lot less jumpy than basking sharks. All right, and we have two others. I want to move us along because we're coming along. Bill Wages is also a drone pilot now, and Bill has a little short video. Bill hasn't been doing it quite as long as Mark or I have, but he, like everything else he touches, he's so good at it. So Bill has a video and a few stills. My stills were embedded in my video, and so you can get a chance to see. And Bill has the latest new Mini Pro 3, which is DJI's smallest and most affordable drone. So this is what you get with a Mini Pro 3. And I'll let Bill talk afterwards, or do you want to talk before? I don't care.
This is basically, so this is basically a full auto setting on the drone here. This is my second real and probably only attempt to really put a video together and actually add music and all that. So I'm pretty much a rookie at this stuff, and especially after seeing David and Mark's stuff, it's really incredible. But anyways, this was on the coast, and I finally got brave enough to take it out over the water. So. So these are some shots when we had a group of us go to New York City, and after 10 days there, Lori and I shot up to Hudson Valley to get the fall colors up there. And I took the drone out a few times up there to take some shots of the fall colors. So this is what they are here. No, that's.
Question, did you use filters?
On this set, yes, I did.
Okay.
And George, three of us talked about it, but George said, hey, I have some shots from drone too. So we're going to have George show us a few of his.
So that was actually my first video, which is not a video. You have seen very well controlled videos from David, Bill, and Mark. This is completely uncontrolled. Half of it, I even didn't know where the drone was. We were hiking at 11,000 feet, so I sent the drone up. I tried to fly over the lakes we went by, and then I couldn't see the drone anymore. But one thing is absolutely wonderful about these drones is their software. And you have a magic button. The magic button brings the drone back to you, just like that. Honestly, I thought I had completely lost the drone.
Where were you standing?
This is Little Lakes Valley.
Can you see yourself?
Hmm?
Can you see yourself in here?
No.
Little, which valley?
Hmm?
Which valley?
Little Lakes Valley.
In the mic. Little Lake.
Little Lakes Valley, Eastern Sierra. And this is the lake we hike from, where we spent 2 nights. It's called Chicken Foot Lake. And this is where I lost the thing. I was trying to find locations I could recognize. I had no idea where it was. Actually, it was on the other side of the pass. But you can see the quality of the image. It's a smaller drone than David's. It's the intermediate size between Bill's drone and my drone. Where am I? So it's beyond.
Are we going to get car sick?
Okay.
Is that it? Well, still more. One of the
So that's probably at 12,000 feet.
one of the things that you first learn when you fly a drone is how soon it becomes invisible. And if you don't keep your eye on the drone, you will lose it very, very easily. People tend to stare at the controller on the screen, which the controller on the screen shows you exactly what George is looking at. But, you know, once it goes up a little bit, you can't hear it anymore. You don't see it anymore. And you go. And there are a lot of people who have lost their drones by, you know, just losing track of it.
So I am right below you.
But the drones have a function called go to home. When you take off, it will register your position. And there's a magic button that George referred to. Where are you?
On the trail.
Oh, right there. So you push that magic button, it will automatically come back to you. And if it starts to lose, if it starts to go low on battery, it will automatically come back to you. And you have to be kind of stupid to I mean, I'm nothing about anyone here, but if you just push that go home button, it comes back to you. So, yeah.
Actually, Mark has a little story about that.
Yes.
Not to make this too much longer, but so you're not afraid of losing your drone. There's actually an indicator on the screen that tells you exactly how far away it is and what direction it is. So all you have to do is look at that screen, turn the arrow toward you. It shows you where you are and where the drone is. You turn that arrow toward you and just fly, and it'll come in overhead. So you don't even have to use the go to home button. You can tell where it is. And then, Peter, you were making a comment about, so if the drone, they're like David said, they're totally safety protected. If it loses a signal from your controller, the drone knows where home was. It registers the GPS, and it will fly back to you. The minute it loses control or a signal, it'll fly back and land within 3 feet of where it took off. So if the battery goes low, if it loses signal, pretty much under any circumstance, you pretty much have to fly it into something to lose it. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Is there anything else? No. All right. Okay. So I don't want to cheat Douglas out of his time, so I'm going to kind of go through. We're okay? We're doing fine. Okay. So drones, they've gotten, they're great, but they've gotten a bad rap because you have stupid people doing dumb things with them, like flying them into helicopters or something like that. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the drone world for any of you that are still interested after you saw this, and they're really great. It's like a tripod in the sky. I can go around and get shots that I could never get before. And believe it or not, my drone will shoot as slow as 8-second exposures. So you go, wait a minute, how can you shoot an 8-second exposure? Well, what happens, the drone the camera is stabilized on the drone, and when you fly it outside, it's using all the GPS satellites that it can see to stabilize the drone. So I've done slow water shots with the drone, and I'm going, it's as rock steady as a tripod, assuming that there's little wind. Even with some wind, they'll hold their positions. So on these drones, when you fly it and you have the control sticks, if I let go, it just stops and it just hovers. And it'll hover there until it runs out of battery. But we'll talk a little bit about that. So you see, we have 3 drones here. George. Well, I don't care. They can, or you can come up and look at them while I talk. It doesn't make any difference if you. This is a kind of a very informal session. So these are all from DJI, which is the 10,000-pound gorilla, and these drones cost anywhere from about $400, $500, $600 to about $4,000 here. And you can buy drones up to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Yeah, those are, so I don't know how many of you know, a lot of the movies now, instead of using somebody with a steady cam with the rig and stuff, they'll fly a drone. They'll fly it indoors and they'll do the filming because they can do things that they couldn't do with a person. They're used for agriculture, film, and soon to come to your door, Amazon, supposedly. We'll see about that. Okay, so they all have different cameras. Some of them have a small half-inch sensor. The largest one is my drone has a 4/3 inch sensor on it. It actually, my drone has two cameras on it. And like Mark, they're made by Hasselblad. Let's see, let me go through this without, I don't want to bore you. You can shoot RAW, you can shoot JPEG. just like you do with your regular camera. The newest drone is the little one that Bill has, the Mini Pro 3. Yeah, and I'm going to fly mine and his indoors tonight. His is so quiet. You won't believe it. If you're outdoors, Bill launched it the first time that he got it. You know, he ordered it when we were. Did you order it when we were in Scotland?
Because of all those Ireland videos we just I said, man, I got to get one of those. So I pre-ordered that Mini Pro 3 while we were in Ireland.
Yeah, and you'd be amazed how quiet it is. You see the quality. I mean, and these. We didn't shoot, I don't think any of these were done as raw photos. You didn't do yours as raw, and Mark, were yours shot raw, just JPEGs?
No, I shot that all raw.
All raw, okay, he shot his on raw. I didn't shoot, mine was just, I left it alone. I didn't, you shoot what's called DNG, which is, the equivalent of a raw file. And so mine were just, JPEG quality. And I think yours too, Bill?
Mine was raw.
Yours was raw.
It shoots them both, JPEG
Yeah.
and
But,
raw.
I get such nice looking shots out of it. I'm too lazy.
No, you're right. I mean, JPEG straight out of the camera looks great.
Yeah. So let's see. The differences between the drones. Bill's has, like as I mentioned, I think is a 1/2-inch sensor, and it has a fixed aperture. Mine has a variable aperture, variable shutter, the whole bit, and it's regular adjustments, just like you do with any camera. Let's see. You see how good the footage is. Some of the features, portability, weight, flight time. Bill can get, what, 35 to 40 minutes from a bigger battery on his. I get up to 45 minutes on one of my batteries.
Would you want to speak to what kind of changes in
Okay.
The question is, can you speak to how much zoom you could do, the change in focal length?
Yeah, they have digital zoom on them, and I know digital zoom isn't the best, but I can get on my drone 28 times zoom, which is really a lot. I don't use that zoom for something I want to shoot and keep, but for just looking around, it's just incredible. I've shot weddings with 7x, and they look great. So there's the controller has you can control the zoom. I'll show you when we fly it.
We have a question here.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, real quick, what's the licensing situation, obviously, when you go to other countries as well as here?
So,
I mean, where all you guys have licenses, or where's the no-fly zones? Talk about that.
So there, on Bill's drone, his comes with a standard battery. You do not need a license to fly it. But that's with the standard battery. It's under 250 grams, 249, I believe it is. But Bill got the optional longer range batteries, which now puts him over that weight limit. All right. So the license requirement is this. There are basically two types of licenses. There's a recreational license, which everyone is required to get now. And it's if you're flying your drone for recreation and you don't have that license, you could be fined, and you could be put in jail, believe it or not. I don't think there's drone police out there looking for you, but you're technically supposed to have that recreational license. What do you have to do to get that license? It's a free thing that the FAA puts out there. It takes you about 30, 40 minutes. You can't fail it. They give you basically the answers to the questions, and they ask you, and it's multiple guess, and if you get it wrong, they let you guess again. Yeah. So it's really easy to get that license, and what that license will allow you to do is to fly your drone for recreational purposes. And what's recreational purposes? The definition is anytime you're flying purely for fun. Now, if you're flying your drone for anything except recreational purposes, you have to have a Part 107 commercial drone operator's license. I have a 107 commercial drone operator's license. It took me about a month and a half of studying to be able to pass. I passed the test with 97% with that. But I'm also a regular licensed airplane pilot. But you can get, if you were an airplane pilot, you can get your drone thing with, certain things. But it's better just to go ahead and study it. And it's not hard. I studied a month and a half because I wanted to make sure I knew it. And they ask you questions about weather, rules, where you can fly, where you can't fly. So all that being given, one of the reasons I almost didn't get a drone, I thought, well, where can I fly this thing without getting into trouble? There are a lot of places you can fly it without getting in trouble. But you can't fly it in national parks. You can't fly it in almost all the state parks. There are certain municipalities that won't let you do it. There are lots of places that you can't. But there are a lot of places you can fly. And there's an app on that you can get on your phone. It's called Before You Fly. You can go, I'm going to fly. I flew in downtown Sacramento. I want to know if I flew here, am I going to get into trouble? I just, open the app Before You Fly. It shows where I am. Oh, no problem. It shows me, there's a CHP place over here. It's warning you. You don't want to be too close to that. You can even fly at the Nevada County Airport. People think you can't fly drones at airports. You can, but some airports need the bigger airports. You have to have permission. The smaller ones, you can file on a plan and actually fly at the airport. So the idea with the recreational license is they tell you basically what you can't do, so that you won't be an idiot and get into trouble. I
David, we have a question here from Bob.
Yeah.
You just kind of touched on it, but I was wondering about the ethics involved with wildlife, and I've been to a number of places where they say absolutely no drones, like in parks, and you just kind of touched on that, but I've been places where there's a lot of wildlife and they say absolutely no drones, and when I see pictures of horses running or birds flying, kind of makes me wonder about what you think about the ethics of flying around wild animals.
I don't like to fly it around. I would love to fly it around animals, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to disturb them. I don't want to, when we were in Ireland, there was a castle there that the owner didn't want you to fly to because there were some nesting birds in the castle that were rare, and if you flew near the castle, you would disturb the birds. So this is one of those things you have to use your brain. You don't want to be out there disturbing birds, and you don't want to be. And even if you didn't want to, if you flew out where there's eagles and hawks, they'll attack your drone. There are plenty of instances of a bald eagle taking down a drone. They've got big talons and they just come and bite, and there you go. So you don't want to be flying in those areas. You don't want to be disturbing them. I try to stay as far away as I can. I realize that those wild mustangs in Nevada, I flew over them. I didn't want to fly too close to them. They moved, but when I moved away, they stopped. So I try to maintain a distance from them. And the ethics is you have to be responsible. Otherwise, you make a bad name for all the drone pilots, and that's that's why the industry gets a bad rap.
You mentioned about you could adjust the f-stop and shutter speed. And can you do that live when you're already in the air?
Yeah, you do that totally. The controller has all those adjustments on there. You can fly just like you do with any camera. I can put it on auto. I can put it on manual. And I can do shutter priority, aperture priority, the whole thing for my drone, because my drone has a variable aperture. Some of the smaller drones, like Bill, has a fixed aperture. He has a 1.7 aperture f-stop on his. Mine goes up to f11 or something like that.
One more thing, you said you could shoot up to 8 seconds exposure.
Yes.
Would it be possible to ever do any kind of nighttime photography with that?
Yes, you can do nighttime photography if you're a licensed 107 pilot. If you're flying with a recreational license, you're not legally able to fly at night at this point. There's lots of changes coming afoot, including drone remote ID is coming. Remote ID is going to show where any drone is at any one point in time, basically for law enforcement purposes, so that you don't want to do something stupid. You can't fly over crowds. You can fly, incidentally if you're transitioning, but you cannot fly over crowds. You can't be flying your drone at a football stadium. You will for sure get arrested and fined and maybe thrown in jail. They're serious about this stuff. So you don't want to be stupid about it.
David, can I make a comment? Just
Yeah.
for everybody in the room, these drones have about 90% of the controls that your DSLR does. It's quite amazing. Not only can you control the couple basic things, you can control almost everything you can with a DSLR. So from an artistic standpoint, they're pretty incredible.
All right, I'm going to
We've got a couple of questions from our Zoom folks. Suzanne asks, does the camera on the drone take stills separate from video?
It's the same camera, just like your regular camera, but you can do separate videos and separate stills.
And Frank asks, what's the cost of the commercial license?
The test costs $200, and you have to take that test every 2 years. You have to keep it current, and when you renew, I have to renew mine. There's no cost for that, and it's a fairly simple renewal test just to renew it. But they want to know that you're keeping up with the regulations.
And I'll just make a quick comment. The drone ID thing is a good thing because there have been many fires that have been where the airplanes have been taken out of the sky because somebody has launched a drone in the area of a fire. So
yeah, this is idea. This is stupidity at its highest. Flying out there and preventing the people from doing their job. Anyway, okay. Maybe there's a lot of stuff we can talk about. We can talk about it at the intermission or afterwards. Basic rules: 400 feet. You cannot fly over 400 feet above ground level, not above sea level, above ground level. From where you are, 400 feet is a basic rule. You have to maintain your drone within visible sight, without the aid of binoculars or whatever. You can't be flying over people and places. You have to get permission to fly in what's called controlled airspace. And you can get either a trust license, which is the recreational one, or Part 107. It's very easy to get the trust license.
Okay, yeah. You're supposed to carry your license with you when you fly the drone, and the license number should be visible on your drone.
Yeah. Mine, if you look at my drone, I have the license number for the US. I have a license number for British airspace because I'm also licensed in British airspace. So you have to have those things. And if you go to other countries, they even get more serious. I've seen in other countries, the drone pilots will have their jacket. They'll have a license number on their jacket, so you know that they know their license and they're complying. Let's see. I think that's all I'm going to talk about it because I can go on and on and on. And I just thought, if you want to see what it looks like when it fly, I thought I'd fly it in here. So this is Mark called trainer wheels. These are propeller guards. These are so that I can fly it if you do a haircut. These are detachable, and the drone. So inside the drone, when I fly the drone inside, I'm losing one thing, and it's a big deal. I'm losing my GPS system outside, so I don't have the that capability of the GPS to help me the drone. You can see it's now on. I was going to hook this up to the projector so you could see, but my HDMI on this for some reason is a little wonky. So this is my controller. You can get, when you buy these, a standard controller is this one here, which you use with your cell phone. You put your cell phone on top, you plug it in. This one is a little fancier. It has a screen, and if you see, I see everything that the drone sees, I see on here. There's a gimbaled camera on here that stabilizes the drone, and there are a number of safety features, and one of them I am going to do right now that has bypass, brake, or off. If it is on bypass, it goes and detects an object. You get too close, it'll go around the object. If I put it on brake, it'll stop and it won't move. It's on off right now, which means I can fly it into the wall. Yeah. But when I shoot indoors, when I shoot the videos for viewpoint, I have to have it on off because I can't get it close enough to the wall to fly. But it has controls for your camera and everything else. And here, so I'm going to do is I have a checklist, and I've completed the checklist.
Take off.
No hands, Mom. Now, it's not quite as stable as it should be because I don't have the GPS. I'm not going to fly it around the room because I don't want to make sure, but all it is I'm turning it left, turning it right, I'm going up, down, I go sideways, I go this way, I go forward, and I go back. So the way to fly, it's kind of like rubbing your stomach and patting your head and jumping on it. That's how you get to, and you see these people fly, and the experts. I don't know if you've ever seen those drone races. Those are kids, and they're flying what they call PV, their point of view. They're wearing goggles, and they're racing, and they don't have any GPS control on them. They're racing, and they just, they're so quick. But that's so you can see the screen, and then I can on here. I don't know if you see the camera in the front here. I'm tilting the camera down, and I'm tilting it up. And I can also zoom the camera on here and do a bunch of things. It has a GPS locator. It shows me where the drone is. I can put it on a GPS map. Okay, all right. So that's it. If you've never seen it, that's it. I can answer questions after the break. And now. Oh, you want to hear Bill's? Can I do that? Well, I'll do it during the break. Why don't we do it? Let's take our break. Or no, Douglas is going to talk next. I'll do it during the break. We'll fly Bill's.
Thank you, David. We are so lucky to have talented people here in our club who can just at a moment's notice share all this with us. So now we're going to have Douglas Hooper share a short presentation on Burning Man. And that's something that probably most of us won't get a chance to go to for a variety of reasons. Maybe the sand, I'm not sure. But Douglas goes every year, and he's been going for how many years now, Douglas?
22.
22 years. So here is Douglas.
24 years inclusive. I've been to every official one beginning from 1999. So that's 22. And George is going to get my pictures full screen. So I've spent all of my last number of days with an hour here and an hour there trying to prepare for this. I still haven't gotten through all of my 2022 pictures, but I'm glad to have had this as a deadline. I made a lot of progress. So you're seeing the best of about 40% of what I shot. So I thought I'd focus on the man, the Burning Man. And this is a dawn picture. Next. Also at that same dawn, one from one side and one from 180 degrees away the other way. Next. So a lot of the next pictures are of the burning of the man. And I had a great vantage point. The last few years I've been able to sit in the top of this lighthouse. This lighthouse was created by my campmate Bruce Reuser, and it's about 30 feet high, and I get to sit in the crow's nest. Next. Good question. Burning Man is an annual event held in the Northwest Nevada desert. It's mainly a celebration of art. It encompasses many things. And in fact, there are a handful of people in here who have been there. I know Craig has many times. And if you guys think of things to add to what I'm saying, go ahead and just call it out. And so I wanted to get one more picture in sequence. I wanted to show that most of the week, the man's arms are down. And then for about an hour on Saturday night, the arms go up and then the man gets burned. And this is halfway through the raising of the arms. Next. There, the arms are raised. Next. This is my friend Gwendolyn. We've known each other a long time. She lives in LA, and I brought her to her first Burning Man this year. And she got to go up in the crow's nest with me. And I just put this picture in to show you the space I had. Not much. Next. This is a scene from up there. This is the fire conclave performing before the burning of the man. And the reason you can see everybody in the foreground is one of the poofers went off. Burners like to put what's actually a flamethrower on their art car. But we found the police and the military don't like it when they think we have flamethrowers. So they're called poofers. And the poofers light up a huge amount, and you need to be ready with your camera on automatic or program in order to get these kinds of pictures, or you will not get an accurate exposure. Next. This is the same scene without a poofer going off. And you can see the fire performers getting ready to do their number. Next. Craig says I should mention how many people were there, and I don't know the exact number, but it's about 75,000. 75,000 people. So this is an overall view from my crow's nest position. Next. And there was a poofer across the way that was 180 degrees to me, so I got to get some nice glowing pictures with the glow behind the man. Next. This is the one I was going to put earlier to show the arms up. Next. The fireworks start to go off. Next. More fireworks. Next. And more fireworks. Next. And the reason I put this picture in and the next one, or it was actually probably the last one, is there was a poofer down to my lower right, and he would blow off periodically, but even the light would only be on for a half second, maybe a second. But after his light had gone off, I said, okay, his light's off, I can get a picture. A pocket of superheated air was traveling through my field of view. And just like you would see a mirage in the desert, this made the pictures way blurry. And you can't see it here, but the middle of this picture is far out of focus because of the heat wave. Next. More fireworks. Next. And then there's a big explosion. And this is the way the man is started on fire. Next. Now his head's on fire. Next. More fireworks. There's a fantastic fireworks show. Next. But wait, that first explosion was a decoy. This is the real explosion. Next. 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 The thing was huge. These little specks down here, those are full-grown adults. Next. And there's the, after the flame dies away, there's the man very much on fire. Next. And the fire continues. Next. And it starts creating its own weather. Dust devils spin off of it almost every year. Next. And this is the beginning of the base has been burning for a while now, and it's about to collapse. So next, 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 next. And this is just another overview of the crowd after the man has come down. Next. Another overview of lots of fun, interesting people. Next. And this is when the poofer to the right of me went off. Makes a good crowd picture. Next. And this was just out there in the crowd. I believe she had control of the poofer on our right. She was blowing it off to time with her dance. Next. So we're in a completely different story here now. The art at Burning Man is amazing, spectacular. It's really something to see. And I go out, this was at sunrise, just after sunrise, and I go out looking for photos. And my friend Gwendolyn was kind of scouting for me because I get busy photographing one thing, and she came back and said, oh, you got to see this one. And you may see just a little bit, there's another figure inside the mouth. There's another boy in there. It's essentially white plastic. And she said, every once in a great while it lights up. You got to get a picture of it lit up. So I got over there, and it's actually different mornings. Next. This is a close-up of, artwork is entitled The Fear Beast by Tigray Mashal. It looks like Lively. I haven't heard his name pronounced. It's spelled like the word lively. And this was a spectacular piece of artwork. These are motorcycle tires to make the legs and teeth. And the scales are made of metal. Next. And these are the eyes of one side of the beast. They're red glass with faces in them. And you can see the tires woven around them. And next. So this was actually before sunrise on another morning. I lined myself up, and I was waiting for the light inside to come on, but it wasn't coming on. And I then saw there was another dimension to this piece of artwork. There was a recording coming out of the mouth of the fear beast, and it said, "You're no good, and you'll never amount to anything. Nobody likes you." And this man walked up and hugged the boy, and just then the inside lit up. And I said, "Could you please stand aside? I'd like a picture of the boy lit up inside." And he ignored me. I knew he heard me. I thought, okay, what's going on here? And after I asked one more time, and he ignored me again. And I just thought, I have something to learn here. And then after another moment, he looked at me and he said, "When you hug the boy, it changes the recording." And I listened to the recording, and it was saying, "You're wonderful. You can do anything you want. Everybody loves you." I was like, oh. And then he handed me his card, and this is Halcyon. He's one of the most famous Burning Man journalists. And it took me a few weeks after Burning Man, but I got this picture sent off to him, and he sent me back a raving email, said, "Oh my God, this is my favorite picture of all of 2022, absolutely." And he put it in one of his Facebook posts, and when I post a picture on Facebook, it gets 150 likes, 200 on a good day. He posted this, and within minutes it had 1,000 likes. So that's the amazing part of the story. The really sad end of this story is a week after I'd sent him this picture, the artist who created this piece committed suicide. And it's like, wow, it's so sad. So this was a powerful experience for me this year at Burning Man.
What happens to the art after?
Kathy's asking what happens to the art afterwards. About 92% of it is taken back apart and trucked back home and either put in storage or it's put on municipal display. That's not part of Burning Man, honest. The spectacular rocket ship that was there in 2009, 45-foot tall rocket ship, ended up on display at the Embarcadero in San Francisco from 2010 to 2013. But then it was time for it to move on. It was supposed to be a temporary display. And it sat in storage for a few years, and now I understand it's decorating an ice cream store in Denver. It's on the roof of an ice cream shop. Yes?
Some of it gets sold at some point. The original El Pupo
Right.
sold. And then with 2018,
Yeah,
19,
well.
remember the tree with all the lights in it?
Yeah, the tree of Tenier. Oh, Desert. Good, you are here. Okay, that's Desert was adding that a spectacular tree from a few years ago is now in Scandinavia. There's a great art car, I did not bring a picture tonight, called El Popo Mecanico. Probably everybody would agree it's the most popular art car in the history of Burning Man. And it was built by an artist in the Eureka area, and it had just started getting old over the years, and he sold it to a museum in Las Vegas for $600,000. And then he decided it was just too popular. El Popo needs to be at Burning Man. So he made a new one and renamed it El Popo Magnifico, and it cost him $250,000 to build it. So he still has $350 in his pocket.
So it's a giant octopus with propane coming out of the end of the tentacles, and they also move a little bit as it's being driven.
Yes, El Popo is a giant octopus. I'm repeating this for the Zoom people, with fire coming out of all 8 tentacles, and all 8 tentacles wave up and down. It's quite spectacular. And this one on the screen, I don't know the title of this. I just photographed it at sunrise and thought it was beautiful. And yes.
Is there any funding for the artists to build these things, or is it all out of their own pocket?
There is funding. An artist can put in a grant proposal around now. I think there's a couple cycles. There may be early next year. And they get funded to varying amounts. It's usually never quite as much as the artist wants, but they do fund some of the projects to the tune of $50,000. And then the obvious part to the question about what happens to the artwork after Burning Man, I said about 92% gets taken home. About 8% of it does get burned, and that's the reputation of Burning Man.
Are all these things run by gasoline generators?
I'm being asked how are these things run. For the most part over the years, for example, this lighting is run by a gasoline generator. More and more of these art pieces are now arriving with solar panels instead of a generator. And then you see, I never saw this one flaming, but this one has fire coming out of both the palms, and I never got to see that in this case. And that would be most likely propane, but it could be other fuels. Next. More artwork at sunrise. Next. This was kind of a Tibetan flavored temple in very vivid colors. Next. And next. This was the front of a theme camp on the Esplanade. Next. This was a large sculpture out there on the playa. This is about 25 to maybe 30 feet high. Next. Next. Here's some kind of spider creature where you can slide down into a pile of pillows. Next. Next. Do you remember the title of this one, Craig? It's started with a P, not Paradiso. Anyway, it was a spectacular art piece. The San Francisco Symphony played there Thursday night of the week. Next. Another little art piece somebody threw up in a minute. Next. Next. A little sunken town. Next. Next. My camp had a wedding right in front of this sculpture. Next. There's a side view. It really was spectacular to see. Next. Going back to camp late one night at 3 in the morning, I found this little set of dioramas. This is about a foot across. And there was about 6 or 7 of them. They were all changing colors. Next. And that's what it looked like a moment later. It's many layers of frosted glass, I think, and then there's lights between the layers. Next. Those are 2 huge steel girders with strong anchors at each end. And that's it. And when I discovered it, pretty much before the event began at 4 in the morning, I walked across it just to see if I could do it. It's a little scarier than you'd think. Yeah, I did it in the dark. Next. And this ball, you can see people waiting in line to get inside of it. It's an extremely sophisticated sound system. Each little blobby thing is a speaker, so you have speakers all around you. And all week long it played Pink Floyd. Next. How about a wind farm? Next. Here's Gwendolyn playing with the pinwheels. Next. This is fun. I wish you were all close enough to read it. It's a whole bunch of funny stuff about how taking a dose of Burning Man is going to cure your ills. Next. This is some of the up-close stuff. Effects might include potent energy that creates eye-opening, surrealistic, and sometimes life-changing events. Next. And from the back of the room, you probably can't see. Those are all washing machines, refrigerators, dryers. Next. This was across from my camp. It's a karaoke camp. And you could karaoke to a live band. And the band was good. And we went, the winds came up. And when the winds come up, you don't want to go too far from camp. So since they were right across the street, we hung out there. This is the audience you see in the lower right-hand corner. We were just part of the audience. And every single person who got up there and sang was terrible. I was pretty surprised. Next. More of the art sculptures. Next. And this artist has been there a few years in a row, and each year this person is bringing more and more of these sculptures. They're very dramatic. They're kind of a off-white and kind of tormented human sculptures. Next. And next. Next.
Douglas?
Yes.
These are actually plaster applied to the human body and then removed.
Yes, that's correct. You can tell when you see them in person that it was a real person that was cast to make these sculptures. I haven't looked at the time. We're almost at the end. Next. And next.
So Douglas?
Yes.
The progression from your first Burning Man to this Burning Man, the artistry level must be huge difference. No?
It's got the same spirit. It's just a lot more. The first Burning Man I went to in '99 was around 8,000 or 10,000 people total. And now you just see 50 times as many art cars, 50 times as much artwork. And I didn't say a disclaimer. A lot of these I just didn't get time. These are uncropped, unphotoshopped. That's just out of the camera. But I just wanted to show you the artwork. Next. Somebody had the great idea to get 10 or 11 different artists who all happen to build horse sculptures and get them all together for one big horse display. And there was some beautiful sculptures. Next. Next. This was in the beginning of the week, and they really were digging a trench to put down the electrical for their art presentation. Next. 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 This is an art piece by Michael Christian. There it is in the daytime. Next. And there's at night. That's about 25 or 30 feet high. Next. This was an interesting art piece. This one's to show you, depending on where you're standing, you can't quite tell. You can tell they're letters, but you don't know what. Next. And if you stand on one side, you see that. If you stand on the other side, next, you see that. Next. Some of my friends there, with Gwendolyn on the left. Next. This is one of the artists who built this. Real briefly, inside is all mirrors with no handles, and when you walk in, the door closes behind you. And then you suddenly realize you have no way out. There is a tiny sign across the way over one of the panels, and it says something like, "Come here." And if you go push on that panel, it just pushes open, but it's not that obvious. And my friend Gwendolyn went in there. She had just given me a whistle, and she had a whistle, and she said, "If you need to find each other, blow the whistle." And she'd just gone in there. I was still photographing something else. And I started hearing this whistle going, tweet, tweet, tweet. And this is one of the artists, and she ran and rescued Gwendolyn before I got there. Said, "I'll show you the way out." Next. That's a portrait of her. Next. That's the same art piece, just on an afternoon when a dust storm was blowing by further away, which allowed me to photograph it from here. Next. And I didn't even get into all these other things I did there, the fire spinners. Next. One more fire spinning. And next. And then there's the temple. The temple's a whole other story I won't cover tonight, but here's 2 pictures of the temple. Next. There it is with the crescent moon. Next. And there it is burning down at the end of the week. And that's it.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, well, thank you to all our presenters tonight. Rachel is going to tell us about our intermission and give us some more information.
Thank you, guys, and thanks for the presentations. Those were awesome, and thank you especially for stepping up to entertain us tonight. So, all right, let's go take an intermission. We'll do 10 minutes, start at 7:45. We'll come back and show you the winners of last month's voting and enter the critique. All right, folks. There's coffee and cookies in the back. So these are the images that were submitted last month and voted on. And I need a light here. So starting with Best Assigned Subject. This is entitled Oak Tree, and the artist is Robert Arnold. Best Abstract, entitled Bergie Bit Black Sand Diamond Beach, Iceland, by Fred Finney. Best Architecture, Huhukum Heritage Center in Arizona, by June Anderson. Best Fauna, entitled Big Gulp, by Bob Free. Best Flora, Close Encounter with a Dahlia, by Ingrid Lockhart. A tie for natural landscape. The first is Aspendell Pond by Mike Shea. Is that the wrong one? Okay, so this would be Natural Landscape After the Rain by Jonathan Beck. This must be Aspendell Pond by Mike Shea. Best People, Gary Newman at Soundcheck by Ellen Davis. Best Photojournalism, entitled You Want Me to Do What? Where am I going? Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. They're not in the same order, obviously. This is entitled Cowboys Roping a Calf at a Branding in Sierraville, California, by Grace Farrig. This one must be You Want Me to Do What? By Jimmy Macchio. Best Travel, entitled Need a Ride, by Rachel Rosenthal. Best Creative Fantasy, entitled New Birth of Venus with Red Mask, by Robert Arnold. Best Manipulated but Realistic, entitled Not Manipulated but Not Realistic, by George Pelpel. Best Black and White, entitled Cloudy Afternoon in the Desert, by Eric Ingalls. Best Color, entitled Painted Chairs, by Patricia Levitin. And our last image, Best Phone, entitled Above the Smog, by Tom Quinn. So, round of applause for all the winners for last month. All right, there is one quick announcement, if we could have the lights. Could we have the lights up for just a second? Oh, thank you, Mike. Henry Goodman had a quick announcement about an upcoming exhibition. Henry?
Yeah, I'm going to have an exhibition at the Flower Garden Bakery, the one on Sutton Way near CVS and Safeway. And it's going to be landscapes mainly of the Yuba River, but also Table Mountain, the Redwoods, and fall in Vermont and Maine. And it's going to be in December and January, starting December 1st.
Thank you, Henry. That's excellent. All right, I will turn this over to Kathy Triolo and our judges for our critique tonight.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And before we start, I just want to thank our judges for tonight, Chris Schiller and Douglas Hooper. I was going to say Harper, I don't know why. Douglas Hooper and Chris Schiller. So thank you very much. So let's start out. Assigned subject, which is creative self-portrait. You're going to love these. The first one is My Breathing.
This image looks like it might be a cyanotype. It has the imperfections that give alternative process images their character. It is also at least a double exposure and a well-executed one, with the face revealed but everything else abstracted. As a self-portrait, it captures an enigmatic expression somewhere near the intersection of calmness, bliss, and strength. Nicely done.
And the maker is Ellen Davis. This next, she has her fans here, I guess. This next image is Acting Big Bad Wolf Role.
This is a really fun self-portrait, triple exposure, apparently, with a lot of enthusiasm and feeling and motion to it, emotion.
Is that it?
There's no constructive criticism for it. It came together really well.
Because it's very creative.
Yes.
And the maker is Jeff Alstadter. This next one is After Andy.
The photographer has captured the look and feel of an iconic Warhol print extremely well. Within that path pioneered by Warhol, the photographer was free to explore the bounds of cultural depiction and self-image. The closest the photographer might come to societal expectations leads us down on a clown-like tangent where one might find either the obscurity of makeup or the primary colors of revelation. We are asked, which one is the cover-up and which one is the real you?
I'll never tell, Kathy Triolo. This next image, 8-hour helmet head.
This one's great. Thanks, John. And I'm guessing he didn't get that hair by watching TV for 8 hours with this helmet on. It's a fabulous picture of a dirty guy.
And I guess you can figure out who did this one, John Siebert. Next image. You know, we know who these people are. Self-portrait.
I love the concept of a photograph within a photograph, and with the photographer seemingly both behind and in front of the camera. This is also a finely executed black and white image with close attention given to composition and execution. Only the two faces are in crisp focus, which makes our eyes fall in love with the tonality of the subject's face and body. I'd go so far as to call this a perfect self-portrait wrapped in an impeccable concept surrounded by a flawless composition.
And the flawless photographer is Robert Arnold. This next one, Into the Trees.
What a beautiful self-portrait this is. Choosing where the image of the person went with the vines is just beautiful. I think this is striking and spectacular. The one feeling I have about it is I wish there was more completion at the top of the frame. But other than that, I think this is an amazingly gorgeous self-portrait.
And the photographer is Darby Davenport. Yeah, oh, her fan club is here too. This next one is John Van Rembrandt.
I love how this month's assigned subject is bringing out creativity and boundary stretching amongst the club members. This is another good example of that. The photographer selected an excellent starting point photograph with its centered, all-seeing eye and its medieval-looking goatee. The style the photographer chose for the artistic treatment is amazingly close to what Rembrandt chose for one of his self-portraits and is outstandingly executed. Very nice.
And the photographer is Jonathan Beth Rembrandt. Next image, self-portrait, Army Barracks, 1984, Golden Gate Bridge.
The treatment of this photo is really nice. It's 1984. I'm wondering if this was done in the darkroom. It would be solarized if that's the case. but it's a very cool picture, very edgy. I think it's a very successful self-portrait.
And the photographer is Shelby Cohen. This next image, my selfie at the car show.
The best thing about this image is that while it has funhouse twists and turns, it doesn't immediately look like a reflection. To me, it seems as if the photographer has given a second camera to some scrutinized diminutive subject, which then captured the photographer as she worked. I love how the white SUV in the background is a double image with a stretched connection between. This photograph achieves the most coveted goal of any photograph to me. It brings us an unexpected and unique view of the world.
And the photographer is June Anderson. This next image, Gesundheit.
It's not Gesundheit.
Oh, it's Gesundheit.
Cheers. This is a on my screen, this looked a little more balanced tonality-wise. This is a very professionally done self-portrait. Nice job. I love the light background on the left with the dark figure, dark part of the figure, and the dark background on the right with the light part of the figure. The drink as a prop, and the lighting goes up underneath the brim of the hat. All very nicely done. And the subject's right eye is lit. Very nice.
And the maker is Hano Botha. And this last image in this category is Halloween self-portrait in my barn.
My first reaction to this photograph was misplaced. I immediately thought that the photographer would do better to crop out most of this image to better concentrate on the human forms. But on second thought, the large, spare wooden spaces with minimalist and functional fittings gives the human forms a sharp sense of nakedness and vulnerability. The pensive expression and body language of the front figure heightens the shivering ominousness of this image. We know it's a self-portrait, but which is the subject? The unsettled woman or the ghostly stalker behind her? This is the barn where horror might happen. Can you hear the first stirrings of an impending scream in her throat?
And the maker is Emily Weissman. And that ends the assigned subject, which was fun. Next category is abstract. You guys are great. Next category, abstract. The first one is Under the Bark.
I love this one because over the years I see beetle-eaten wood, and it makes beautiful abstract patterns. And then I've seen eucalyptus that makes beautiful abstract patterns. Not even sure this wood is eucalyptus, but it's eucalyptus colored. And the two together, I just think, makes a wonderful abstract. Nicely done. It just presents well just as it is.
And the photographer is Tom Quinn. This next image, Glacial Rivers from Above.
The low fidelity nature of this photograph is what promotes its abstractedness. If this were a sharp, realistic image, we might instead think of beauty rather than let our minds open up a bit to other possibilities. The high saturation of the color also leads us toward other organic concepts. We might recognize the fractal bifurcations of biology, or we might imagine we are in orbit around a swampy planet. The photographer has succeeded in what makes abstract photography admirable.
And the photographer is Jay Schuff. That ends the abstract category. We now enter architecture. The first image is Window to the Soul.
This is a very engaging photo, a very cool photo with the missing pane below echoing the large missing window above. And even if you study the wood patterns, the wood has some mirror images of itself. There are places where you can tell that the wood was cut and then opened up and then put in place as the same pattern. I think that's cool. This photographer chose a pretty formal composition and chose to put the window a little off to the right, which I'm okay with. But they didn't photograph right from straight on. You can see the bottom isn't level and the top is. And I would Photoshop that to a completely formal composition for my tastes. And I like the fact I don't believe it's black and white. I believe it's a full color picture. And I like how neutral it is. I think that's a really cool feature of this picture.
And the photographer is Ingrid Lockhart. Next image, miniature furniture on a shelf.
I almost wish the photographer had not given away the secret in the image title and let the viewer search and find the denomination of 2 foreign coin that gives scale in this scene. At first, it looks like we have stumbled into a showroom at a cut-rate IKEA where we are buying starter furniture for a young couple with their first child. The furniture is functional, yet able to withstand the maltreatment of what energetic youngsters might emanate. But we quickly realize we are talking about crickets or Lilliputians here. This is a well-executed, well-composed concept. How much is that rocking horse? I'll take it.
And the photographer is James Sluber. This next image, Manhattan Bridge last night.
This is a really dynamic architectural picture. I like a lot of things about this. The lines are just so pleasing, and there's so much architecture in here. It's perfect for this category. The one constructive criticism is I would darken about the top third of the sky down and maybe even mask out the skyscraper and have it really pop in front of the background. But that's a small comment. This is a really nicely done architectural picture. Very nice composition.
And the photographer is Bill Wages. Last image in this category, horizontal, vertical, diagonal.
My favorite part of this image is the symmetric non-symmetry of it and the infinite variety of the patterns and textures of the boards. There is also a healthy measure of what are we looking at here as we try to judge the scale and function of the doors or windows. This abstraction makes for a more interesting image, in my opinion. I found that the saturation of the foliage at the bottom of the frame draws my eye with its neon brightness, and I'd encourage the photographer to try selective darkening and desaturation of the foliage to improve the image.
And the photographer is Patricia Levitin. That ends architecture. We now enter fauna. And this first image is Yosemite Raven.
This is a breathtakingly sharp image. It's so pleasing just at that level. The raven's entirely in focus. And I like the composition and the cropping. The tail going out is very appropriate. It's apparently sitting on a car. It was probably shot in some shade light, and the bird has a blue cast, and that may be an artistic statement. If you wanted a more realistic picture, you could add yellow, and then the yellow tree behind would pop a little more too and provide an exciting background for this foreground. But I do like the way the blacks of the bird were controlled, and it's a very satisfying picture to look at.
The photographer is Daniel Chaplin. This next image, Moving Day, 11. Copy.
I hope the photographer felt pleased when they saw what they captured in this image. It's a serendipitous moment of a mother cat's solemn responsibility and a kitten's uncomfortable resignation. The composition is well chosen, and I like the close cropping of the subjects. I found the image a little bit bright and flat overall because of the lighting and probably because of diffusion in a long lens, and found that adding vignetting significantly improved the image as well as a little increased contrast. I also like the image better after cropping just a little bit off the left and the right.
And the photographer is Janice Rossner. This next image, you won't like this. It will get stuck in your teeth.
Good title. And this is a really spectacular picture. The light that's going up into the monkeys' faces is beautiful. I don't know how you did that unless you had a great big white building right behind you. The monkeys are all very sharp. The hand that's putting a pick in the teeth is slightly blurry. The monkey was probably moving quickly. Everything else is really sharp. The background is nicely out of focus. This is just a really successful picture. It tells a story. I love this one.
And the photographer is Brian Dunbar. This next image, Mountain Bluebird.
What an excellent capture of a bird in flight and in a posture that's unusual and unique to my eye. The photographer has done a superb job of darkening the bright background to make the bird stand out and has used fast shutter speed to catch the moving moment with sharp details. The catch light in the bird's eye is excellent. However, I found that having the bird's eye almost exactly centered horizontally and vertically in the frame detracts from the composition to my eye. I tried cropping some off the left, right, and top of the image and felt that this improve the composition of the image a lot. The photographer might give it a try to improve an already outstanding image.
And the photographer is Desert Powell. And this last image in the fauna category, Sandhill Splash Off.
This photo has a lot going on in it. This club, of course, produces many great photos, many good sandhill crane photos, but this one's got extra good stuff in it. The bird on the left, its leg being parallel to the water, I find really fun to look at. The shadow of one of the wings is going across the bird's neck on the left, and then the bird on the right, his bill matches right up with that shadow. I think it's intriguing when things like that happen in a photo. This photo has a lot going for it. There's a lot of good things about this. I would crop a little bit off the top myself. Other than that, I love this for a bird picture.
And the photographer is David Wong. And if you go on the field trip, you can learn more. Now we enter the flora category, and this is Explosion of Color.
The painterly treatment of the flowers and the consistent pastel color scheme are my favorite parts of this image. The composition with the large offset extravagant flower on a canvas of supporting and smaller petaled flowers works very well. The little sunburst of the yellow not quite bloom in the lower right is a very nice touch. The overall feel of this image is magnificent. I'm obliged to notice telltale stitching artifacts that suggest this is a composite image, and to mention that along with painterly processing, this might mean the photo is better located under the manipulated but realistic or creative categories for critiquing purposes. Sorry.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. Everybody pay attention. And that's by Ingrid Lockhart. This next image, First Autumn Storm.
Oh, this projector is looking a little light today. On my monitor, this picture is stunningly beautiful. The reds are all brilliant red. I love when I go around and I see these red leaves. They very much attract me, and I try to photograph them from time to time. And this one, everything fell into place for this photographer, where the photographer should get credit. They made everything fall into place. I love the focus, the depth of field. I love the composition and the balance of the picture, the lighting, the water. The only thing that's not perfect, the photographer could never have fixed, is the front two leaves have been chewed on or somehow they're damaged. They're incomplete. But other than that, this one came together perfectly. Nice one.
So demanding.
Yes.
And the photographer is Mike Oitzman. This next image, bristlecone pine high on the California White Mountains.
Bristlecones can take 1,000 years to live and 3,000 years to die. Their flesh is tougher than many rocks. They embody a vital reaching for the sun, even as they stand ghost-like and singular, like this one in the twilight. The photographer has done a good job of capturing the essence and environment of these aged icons of the White Mountains. Although I can't help but wish for a lenticular cloud in the sky, I love the tilted frame of this shot that gives the impression of movement and speed.
And the photographer is George Pelpel. This next image, Fetching Fungi.
So on my monitor, this was too dark. And on here, it looks a little dark as well. So whoever did this, you might want to check and see if your monitor is calibrated properly. Beyond that, it's what a fantastic specimen you found, and you got a really cool picture of it. It's just so satisfying to look at, all those fine fins. The photographer chose to make this the main area of focus, and the depth of field left this out, this entire piece out, and the ridge of this. I might have chosen a slightly closer focusing point and let some of these go out of focus, because this is where the viewer's eye goes first. Small details for a pretty spectacular picture of a mushroom, big mushroom.
And the photographer is Fred Finney. This next image, Amazing Thistle in Finland.
These thistle blooms are indeed amazing. They look like they've been spun by an insect rather than grown, and might hatch butterflies instead of seeds. The purple of the blooms against the pewter and green is particularly appealing. A shallow depth of field is a good choice by the photographer to capture this scene, although it looks like the camera chose the leaf edge on the center right for focus instead of the main bloom, leaving it a little soft. Manual focus or focus point override might have helped with this shot. I also tried cropping some off the left and off the right to make more of a portrait format, and I thought this improved an already fine image.
And the photographer is James Sluber. And that ends that category, and we are heading into natural landscape. This first image, Bahia de Banderas, Puerto Vallarta. I hope I said that right.
I like this image. It's got an open, airy feeling. It's a very free. It's a breath of fresh air. I like that. The setting sun, or rising sun, as the case may be, is a bit blown out. I'm okay with that. It doesn't take up a large amount of the surface area of the photo. And the rest of it is all these gentle tones that are somewhere in the middle that I find very pleasing. And the photographer put this rock in the lower left corner, which I think really helps the composition. And the three others in the foreground to the right help my eyes circle back around to the rocks, the spire of rocks out there in the center. So I like the composition, I like the balance. Nothing I would change about this picture.
And the maker is Rachel Rosenthal. This next image, Twilight on the Garrapatta Coast.
There are so many things working well in this photo and so many ways the photographer applied their obvious skills. A long exposure was chosen to give a dreamlike quality, as if there was no border between water and sky. A long aspect ratio framing was used to emphasize a horizontal movement of water and cloud, with the exposed rocks adding islands of clarity and a bit of complementary color to the image. Finally, the inclusion of a seagull gives an extra flash of white and life to catch our interest. Excellent.
And the maker is George Pelpel. This next image, Emerald Pools.
What a beautiful reflection. I love the way the water further away is showing me a very complete reflection, and the water closer up is letting me see through and becomes a very three-dimensional picture for me. This photographer made this image in full sunshine, which is pretty challenging. And I didn't actually experiment with cropping this one, but there's a sunspot, bright sunspot in the upper left corner, which is also reflected in the lower left corner. And then a sunspot on the rock on the far right edge in the center. And it could be that cropping those sunspots off makes this a stronger image, but it might also upset the balance of it. So experiment, try it. It may be you already have and that this is the best balance. But I like this. I love the reds of the rocks, the greens of the water. That's find that very pleasing. And yes, successful picture.
And the photographer is Eleni Prusa. Next image, Over the Rice Fields.
I love how the photographer captured so many birds in flight over Sutter Buttes in this image. Their silhouettes are orderly when considered in small groups, but wonderfully chaotic when viewed as a whole. The photographer has captured their abundance in the air and on the ground and gives a good feel for what it's like to be out there early on a winter day. I do find myself a little distracted by the brightness of the reflected sky in the bottom of the frame. It seems brighter than the actual sky, and I think the photo might be improved by darkening the bottom 25% of the image. Thanks for sharing.
And the photographer is Sheila Ryan. This next image, Falls near Bosque des Pas, or Bosque des Pas.
This one has a really pleasing composition for me. My eye moves very pleasingly in a circle right around the middle of the picture. It doesn't want to leave the frame at all. And this tree in the foreground makes it feel very three-dimensional. I like that. And it does block a little bit of the waterfall, but it blocks the perfect spot on the waterfall, just the mist where there's not a lot of detail. So I like that quality. I like the quality of the lighting, and the photographer did not lose any of the highlights in the white water. So a very successful picture.
And the photographer is Ann Westling. This next image, Transition Time.
This photograph immediately makes me think of the colors and light in Albert Bierstadt's old paintings of the American West. Those distant golds and closer desaturated greens catch our eye, draw us in, and tug at our Western hearts. Almost everything is working in this photo: the creamy sky, the distant golden range, and the granite boulders framed by the trees. Because this photo is so good, I'd love to see it improved by darkening the lower 20% of the frame significantly. That closest boulder at the bottom is bright and distracting from what makes this photo so superb. With that improvement, I think this photo would go from excellent to brilliant.
And the photographer is Eric Engels. This next image is Summit Lake.
Here's a really broad landscape with a beautiful sky, and I like the shadows of the clouds across the distant mountains. I like seeing things like that. The plant in the foreground gives me the impression of very high mountains, probably Sierra, and very rough conditions in the winter, and not a lot of other plants are trying to make a go of it in the rest of the picture. I find this picture composes well and balances well. No constructive criticism. I think it came together well.
The photographer is Henry Goodman. This next image, I like trees.
I like trees too. In fact, as the son of a forester, I love trees, especially juniper trees like this one. The photographer has placed the leaning tree in the frame to give an excellent composition, and the orange of the rock is a nice color complement to the blue of the sky. The mist of clouds also helps make the photograph more interesting. A few suggestions for improvement. The rocks are very bright, and I found the photo greatly improved when I darkened the rocks significantly. I also found that using the dehaze slider in Lightroom increased the contrast, darkened the sky, and made the clouds pop a little bit more. The photographer might try these suggestions to make a good image a little bit better.
And the photographer is Daniel Chaplin. This next image is Atmospheric Trees.
So this is the natural landscape category where it's supposed to look realistic to what you actually saw there. This one does not look realistic to me. Forgive me if I'm off track here, but it looks like some kind of changes were made to this photo. Given the changes have been made, it's a pretty intriguing image. Some of the branches are almost black, some of the branches are white. That makes it interesting. Some of the image is vividly colored, and some of it's virtually black and white, and that makes it interesting. Some of it's clear, and some of it looks like I'm seeing through a misty curtain, and that makes it interesting. So there's a lot going on in here. I'm not sure it's in the right category.
I'm wondering if it's not a landscape. It's trees. So would it go into fauna? Or flora? Flora, sorry.
Depends on how you feel about what's being featured in here.
Abstract.
But if it were in flora, it would also be, it looks very manipulated somehow.
Yeah, okay.
It's an intriguing image. We're not sure about the category, but it is intriguing.
And the photographer is June Anderson. Thank you for that, June. This next image, Eye of the Storm.
My favorite part of this image is how the photographer chose to place the sunburst near the bottom of the frame instead of at the top. The photographer used skill and timing to capture the sun just as it was setting with an appropriate aperture to get that sunburst. Well done. Because this photo is mostly about the clouds, and because the most interesting clouds to my eye are in the lower right part of the sky, I tried cropping a lot off the left side and off the top, and I found that to my eye, the composition of the photo was substantially improved. Cool colors.
And the photographer is Bob Free. This next image, Fall Simplicity.
I find this to be a very successful image. I can just cut to the chase and say no constructive criticism here. I love the 3D feeling of the plant, the little delicate, lightly colored plant being in the foreground with its pale yellow leaves and being brighter than the background that's dark and cool in colors. I also love the way the photographer chose a position where the branches of this small tree in the foreground line up with the trees in the background. I find that all very pleasing in this picture.
And the photographer is David Wong. This next image, Stormy Lake, Wildwood Morning.
I love the saturated fall colors in this photo, as well as the geometric shapes of the houses and boat covers. In fact, these elements are the real focus of this image, and I found that when I cropped a little off the left and off the top, and even more off the right, this image was improved by being distilled to the essentials while still retaining the misty, stormy feel of the photo.
And the photographer is Mike Oitzman. This last image in the natural landscape category is Sutter Buttes from Gray Lodge.
It's interesting in this photo how the birds in the sky look like lots of little dark specks, and then the weeds and the water in the foreground looks like lots of little dark specks. They kind of echo each other in a pleasing way. It's a very busy picture with lots going on. I like the tree reflections, especially the one on the left. That's a beautiful tree reflection. Interesting photo. Thanks.
And the photographer is Hano Botha. Now we enter the night category, and this first one is San Francisco Palace of Fine Arts Dome.
The photographer did a good job of capturing the columns and carvings of the Palace of Fine Arts. Many fine details of the structure have been rendered. One thing to keep in mind with night photography with artificial lights, especially if long exposures are used, is that the white balance used by the camera may not be correct. For example, this image has a strong green color cast. I found that by using the tint slider in Lightroom to add magenta, I could generate a much more pleasing and natural color scheme. I encourage the photographer to try this or similar tools to improve the color of the photo.
And the photographer is Jeff Alstatter. This next image, Starry, Starry Night.
Beautiful image. The foreground was nicely done. It's a nice amount of light to be a nighttime foreground and plenty of detail. The night sky, of course, is spectacular. The night sky is unfortunately a little bit blurry. It's looks like it has a little bit, the exposure is just a touch long and the heavens are blurred a little bit. So that does detract from the picture a little bit. Other than that, it came together really well. It's a nice balance to it, nice composition.
And the photographer is Rick Eshelman. This next image, New York City lights.
Wow, I love this photograph. It has so many interesting elements, from the starburst rooftop spots to the blurred cloud motion to the dreamy colored water with the old piers leaving dark trails. Everything about it is well conceived and well executed. Cameras do such a great job of capturing subtle color differences at night that our eyes are not capable of discerning. This is an admirable image, but one small suggestion would be to crop a little off the left edge so that there is a continuous wall of lit buildings, and that would also eliminate the dark edge of water in the lower left.
And the photographer is Bill Wages. And the last image in this category is Night Lights.
I like this one. This is really dreamy, and I love the silhouette of the couple in the middle. That sets it off and gives it another dimension, another feeling. And then something I've always liked in photographs are to have a photograph look really dreamy, and yet there's something very realistic in it. And over here to the left, we have the, I forgot the name now, it's somebody's deep fried hot dogs or corn dogs and Oreos. And I love the contrast of that ultra realism next to this very dreamy scene. And I like the composition that the photographer chose. I think this is a really nice photo.
And the photographer is Bernadette Sylvester. Now we enter the people category, and the first image is Aki Kumar.
The photographer has done well to capture a pleasing expression on the performer and time the photo to get his face without the microphone blocking it. Similar to previous comments on night photography, this image has a strong color cast, in this case magenta, which is vastly improved by moving the tint slider in Lightroom toward green, and also with a little warming by moving the temp slider to the right. This gives a much more pleasing image to my eye. I'd also encourage the photographer to explore stronger compositions than this centered one by cropping from the bottom and the right of the image.
And the photographer is Mike Shea. This next image, Ageless.
Good expression, obviously spontaneous, and that the viewer senses that, makes that more pleasing. And by the way, I love the curve of the brim of his hat. And I think that person in the lower left is one of our beloved Camera Club members. I think the photographer did a nice job here, nicely cropped, and very good moment of expression. Good job.
And the photographer is Chris Schiller. This next image, Exhausted.
This image looks like it is from the making of documentary from the previous New York City night photography image. Maybe the woman is dreaming of starbursts and motion-blurred water. I hope so. It tells a story and captures a human moment in the pursuit of beauty and fine images. I'll make a similar suggestion to do a crop off the far left of this image to give the same continuous wall of buildings and eliminate the distracting brightness of the sky on the left edge.
And the photographer is Kathy Triolo. This next image, Slow Dance.
Apparently, it's part of the same series. A beautiful picture. I really like this one. It looks like there's a subtle spotlight on her face, and her face just glows in this picture. And there's a nice feeling to it, a very pleasant and warm feeling. The top, where the hat touches the top of the frame, for me, the hat's not doing anything. I would come down about 10% and crop not that far above the bill of the cap. I think that improves the composition. Everything else about this came together nicely. The focus, composition is all great.
And the photographer is Chris Schiller. This next image, Old Man and the Sea.
The photographer has captured a nice portrait in difficult lighting conditions. The background of this photo is an excellent backdrop for the photo, and having the subject's eyes aligned with the horizon to emphasize them was either lovely serendipity or an excellent choice. The yellow of his watch is a nice highlight and juxtaposition to his face and slightly yellow beard. I found that adding vignetting and cropping some off the bottom of this image improved it and elevated it a little bit in terms of artistic expression.
And the photographer is Rachel Rosenthal. This next image, Girl in Blue.
This is an interesting image. I studied this one for a while. It's interesting how there's so many people in this picture, but you really only see two faces, even close to clearly. The title tells me the young woman in the middle is the subject of this picture. And everything's open to debate, but I would crop in. I would just take the middle third of this picture and make that the photograph. I think that makes a stronger image, even though all the other people are in interesting costumes. I think I really like just the middle third of the picture. And for that, you did a great job. You have a really wonderful impromptu expression, spontaneous.
And the photographer is Eleni Prusa. This next image, Acrobatic Heights.
What makes great studio photography great is that the photographer makes everything look simple and easy. But make no mistake, every aspect of this photograph was a skilled choice, from the position of the subject lighting to the background lighting to the composition of the image to leave space under the subject at the moment of capture. All of this was pre-chosen. Even the clothing choices were likely directed by the photographer. And when the photographic skills of the photographer meet the athletic skills of the subject, the result is an outstanding photograph like this one.
And you can get the rest of the story from Douglas Hooper. This last image in the people category, Solstice Dancers.
We have a photo from an event, apparently, a candid from an event, and I love the colors, all the splash of colors in this. Pretty dancers. It's a pretty nicely composed picture, but the subject's right arm going out of the left side of the picture is not ideal for me. And then it's harder to see in this setting, but the photographer seems to have turned in a very low-res file. So this, you might want to check and see how you're sizing your pictures and how you're sending them in. This would be a prettier picture if it was the full resolution that our projector can handle. And then the lighting was handled well too. It's a full sun picture, and the subject, we see the shady side of the subject, but we see her very well, so that was all nicely done.
And the photographer is Gary Kartstaffner. This next category is photojournalism, and the first image is Climbing from the Sun.
The photographer started with an admirable concept, then skillfully chose the timing and the composition of this image to emphasize the climbing silhouettes in pursuit of 5G heaven. I would have loved to have the sun in this photo be a more photogenic sunburst than the rather blobby sun that was captured. Myself or any of the other photographers with sunbursts in their photos this week would likely be happy to offer advice on how to achieve them. Other suggestions for improvement include adding a little vignetting and cooling the photo off by sliding the temperature slider toward blue in Lightroom.
And the photographer is Jonathan Beth. This next image, Tour of California.
This is a very nice action sports picture. The lighting is nice and even. I really appreciate that we can see their shaded faces so clearly. And I like the balanced composition of the picture. But to move on, I'm thinking, okay, this is photojournalism. It looks to me like they're going slightly uphill. I've done a lot of bicycling in my earlier day, and yet they're in a downhill pose. And then I started studying the pictures more, and I looked at the posts holding the guardrail and the telephone pole in the background. I think this is a tipped horizon. And I think if it's too low on the right, too high on the left, I think if it's tipped, if the right side is tipped up, then we see clearly that they're going downhill. And I would feel like that was a little bit more of an accurate representation. So I was amused to see how this picture affected me by subtle slants of the horizon. But overall, a good picture.
And the photographer is Jimmy Marcio. This next image, not the real thing. Painting an historic phone.
I'm not sure which is older, the phone or the happy Ronald Reagan California painting. The phone looks a little worse for the wear, but the buxom blonde dream seems to live on in an age of cell phones and zero-calorie sodas. And that juxtaposition of dream and reality is what makes this photograph so well conceived. Superb.
And the maker is Jim Bear. And the last image in the photojournalism category, cowboy staff meeting.
And I've said it many times tonight, yet again, the photographer handled lighting well, where there was some direct sun in the picture. And that's always a little challenging, and people are handling that well. I like the two central figures with matching shirts and matching gestures. I don't know if you can see from the back of the room, but they're both gesturing to their right with their right hand. I think that's fun. I like the colorful quality of this picture. That's fun. I do wish the horse's hooves weren't entirely in the bottom, included in the bottom. And this one also composes well. With the bushes on each side, my eye wants to very comfortably stay in the middle of the picture. Nicely done.
And the maker is Brian Dunbar, and that ends PJ, and we're into travel. The first image is Medieval Besalú.
So I looked at this photograph as if it was one of my own and how I would analyze it. And I asked myself, what are the interesting elements in this photo? And the interesting elements to my eye are the arches and the bridge, the steps that are underneath it, the tower in the upper right, and then the reflections on the water. For me, there's not much going on in the lower left of the photo, and in the upper left of the photo, the clouds might be interesting, but at least on my screen, they looked a little bit weird. And the wall on the far right was a little distracting to me as well. So what I did with this image, if it were mine, what I would do with this image if it were mine is I would crop the whole left side of this photograph off and then a little bit off the right to get rid of that right wall. And when I did that on my screen, suddenly the photo snapped into a composition that I found much more pleasing. The photographer might think about these suggestions.
And the photographer is Tom Quinn. This next image, cheese seller at the market.
Well, I do feel like we're somewhere else in the world, not here. Black and white treatment is nice. The people are very important to this picture. I feel like the left side isn't telling me much of the story, and I see that the photographer wanted to keep the tablecloth in the box in the picture. It kind of neatly stops there, but I would just go ahead and crop off that left side, and then the right side I would come and crop just inside the crease in the building there. And then the cheese is on my darker screen was a little bit blown out, and that's kind of the point of the picture. So it'd be nice to control the exposure in the cheese. So with those changes, I think you've got a really strong travel picture that talks about being somewhere else in the world.
And the photographer is Emily Weissman. This last image is You May Kiss the Bride.
I chuckled at the title of this photo that points out its resemblance to an avian wedding. I apologize for not finding much beyond that humorous similarity that appeals to me. Most of the birds are blurry and the photo lacks overall sharpness. The faces of the swans, who seems to be the crux of the photo, are obscured or pointed away from us, as are most of the other birds. It is a fun snapshot, and I thank the photographer for sharing it with us.
And the photographer is Fred Finney, and that ends travel. We now enter creative fantasy, anything goes. And this first image is Quonset Woods.
This came out really well. This is an in-camera double exposure with the frames not matching up from one to the next. And this one just came out so well with the rigid blocking buildings and then the open feeling of the snowy forest. And then the picture has a cool tone all the way across it. I think it works really well. I wouldn't change anything.
And the maker is Ellen Davis. This next image is blue waters.
All the aspects of this photograph come together to make it a professional quality fine art image. The preparation and posing of the subject are exquisite, the concept and composition are fabulous, and the post-processing additions, treatments, and color choices are fantastic. The photographer is obviously skilled in the entire photographic process, as well as possessing a knowledge of what makes great art. This image is over the top great.
And the maker is Darby Davenport. That ends Creative Fantasy. And this next image is Deer Creek snaking through the lava rock in the manipulated but realistic category.
This category is always fun for the critics because we're not really supposed to know what you manipulated. So that's fun. This one came out pretty nicely. It's a nice composition. My eye wants to stay within the frame, the middle of this picture. The rock in the middle does look like it's made of metal. That's kind of, it's a cool look. So, you know, manipulated but realistic, I like that this is almost entirely realistic, but that little bit of metal in the middle looks intriguing. You used some heavy vignetting around the outside, and I think that was done successfully. I think that was the right amount, and it helps the picture, helps the composition. Nice picture.
And the maker is Jim Bear. And this last image in manipulated is Softened Trees.
The basic composition of this photo is skillful. The trees, the ridge lines, and the clouds are positioned to balance each other in a pleasing way. The browns of the land complementing the blues of the sky are also pleasing. I'm actually a fan of processing apps that give images a more painterly feel, and I've offered at least one here in the past for critique. But this image has some technical issues that might have to do with a low-resolution image being used as input to the processing app. The end result has artifacts that significantly detract from the final image and leave me wondering if the original unprocessed image might be pleasing enough to stand on its own.
And the maker is Gary Kartstaffner. And now we enter the black and white category with church doors.
The photographer chose a very formal composition for a very formal subject, so that's a match. I like that. I like the black and white, well, we're in black and white now. I like the treatment of it, and the lights and darks work well. The photographer is very aware of controlling their whites in this picture, and I think to a fault. I think the center part of this picture actually needs to have the whites be a little whiter. The whites are already white enough for me on the right side. Left side's in shadow, so that's fine. And speaking of formal composition, this picture actually has a slanted horizon. It's too low on the left and too high on the right. And given that I'm being presented with this formal composition, I think it would be better to fix that. So with those two little things fixed, I think you've got a strong image that I think is very successful.
And the photographer is Robert Arnold. This next image, I apologize for not pronouncing this right. I think it's Taimani.
The photographer has captured this performer proficiently. They timed the shot when the performer was bent to our right, creating a composition of her body that flows pleasingly in a curve. Also, the performer's entire face is well illuminated, along with a headdress. Finally, choosing a black and white treatment for this image was an excellent choice. However, the highlights in this photo, which include the performer's face, seem muddy to me. Checking the image histogram confirms this. The brightest portions of this photo are a very long way from white. Adjusting curves or levels to brighten the whites in this image could make a good image even better.
And the photographer is Mike Shea. This next image, the sky is the limit.
The photographer came across a very striking sky and wanted to photograph it. And I like the way the photographer included the little thin strip of foreground to balance the picture and give reference to the picture. I like that the foreground's in silhouette. The sky, I think, needs to be a little more dynamic, though. It looks a little too light. I would increase the contrast a little and darken a little, and then try to burn in the lower right corner a little more, too. And I think your sky, you're obviously trying to give us a beautiful, stunning sky, and I think those steps will make this a more stunning sky.
And the photographer is Sheila Ryan. This next image, Angry Ocean.
The photographer has obviously worked hard to capture the dynamics of water colliding with a continent in challenging lighting conditions. But I apologize for not being able to discern many compositional elements in the photo. On their next visit to the ocean, I encourage the photographer to pick out parts of an ocean scene, like a particular rock or a wave or a depression, to give a compositional focus for a future photograph. While the photographer seems to have used vignetting to improve the photograph, hooray, the result seems to be dark blacks on the bottom edge, but fuzzy flat blacks in the middle rocks. Increased image contrast and a lighter touch on the vignetting might improve this and future images.
And the photographer is Jimmy Marcio. This next image, California spikenard.
This is a very successful image. I have no constructive criticisms of this one. This one is beautiful. The depth of field was chosen perfectly. The bright foreground, dark background is very satisfying to look at. And the picture feels balanced to me. I like this picture a lot. And then the plant is very unique, and that makes it even more intriguing.
The photographer is Eric Engels. This next image, 3 zebras.
I love the overlapping zebra faces in the center of this image. The photographer brought skill and timing together to capture a perfect alignment of zebra forms. I like this image so much, I'd love to see it improved. First, I think the image might be improved by increasing the contrast by using regular contrast controls, or better yet, if they have Lightroom, by using the dehaze and clarity sliders. In addition, I think an already nice composition is improved by cropping off the left and right side to focus even more on the best part of this image and make a square frame. There's no rules that photos have to be rectangular. Finally, a touch of vignetting might be an improvement further. Wonderful photo.
The photographer is Janice Rossner. And this last image in this category, black and white raven.
I get my second raven tonight. Ravens are cool. Yeah, it's nice handling of the bird's black feathers. There's a little lost detail on the bird's chest, but that's not so bad because most of the bird looks great. I like the bird's stance. Seems sassy to me. This gives this personality, this photo, a lot of personality. I feel like the bird's nicely balanced within the frame. Maybe a touch off the right. Maybe there's almost too much space in front of it to look into. And then within these categories where we're supposed to be showing something that's relatively realistic, I would still, it's still okay to do some cleanup. I would touch out that one blade of grass that goes across the front of the bird's belly area to improve that. But I like the sassiness of this raven. Nice photo.
And the photographer is Desert Powell. And now we enter the color category. This first one is poolside.
There's an existential question about every water reflection photo. Do we split the frame exactly in half like this photo, or do we offset it? It depends on the photographer's goals and intentions. This photo is already partially abstracted because of the wavy reflection, and the most important elements to my eye are the shadow of the chair, the dividing pool edge, and then the entire reflection. Given this, including all of the upper part of the chair doesn't add much to my eye and even detracts by injecting realism into what is mostly abstract. I tried cropping the top 15 to 20% and thought the image was improved. The photographer might give it a try to improve an already good image.
The photographer is Patricia Leviton. This next image, colors show at the Onyx.
Yeah, beautiful fall colors that this photographer found. And kind of a nice, fun title to go with the movie theater that's behind the tree. I wish there was a tiny bit more space along the left edge where the tree is close to the edge there. Other than that, this was handled well. Looks like cloudy lighting, which really brings out the fall leaf colors. And as I was looking at this picture, I realized the photographer could also crop way in to just the tree and have a really stunning, almost abstract picture of fall colors. Nice photo.
And the photographer is John Sievert. This next image, fall in Maine.
This is an extremely challenging scene to capture, one I probably wouldn't even have attempted. The photographer is very brave. The leaves and plants make for a very bright border with the bridge and structure mostly in shadow. Overcoming that contrast difference is guaranteed to be challenging, let alone dealing with the blue tones of the shadowed whites against the warm tones of the sunlit foliage. It's a great composition, and I love the curve of the bridge across the middle, but the leaves are quite a bit too bright. I found that simple but very heavy vignetting overcame most of this issue and improved the image a lot. Using a polarizer originally might also have helped. Very nice.
And the maker is Bernadette Sylvester. This next image is Buckeye.
Beautiful photo. The butterfly is in complete sharp focus. The flower is just a little out, and I find that very pleasing. The lighting is beautiful. I love all the vivid colors. The only constructive criticism I have to offer is I would make this a square crop. And I love the background being way out of focus and the greens and the blacks. It's just such a good photo.
And the photographer is Bob Free. And this last image is Morrow Rock.
There's something about reflections of sailboat masts on water that make me think of assembling puzzles as a kid. I think this photo would make a great puzzle, and that's a compliment, not an insult. I love how both the mass and the rock dissolve into wavy squiggles the further down the image they go, and I love the rock bulging above its misty horizon. It's an excellent composition and captures a morning mood perfectly with its pastels and browns. The only improvement I can suggest is, come on, you know what I'm going to say, add a little bit of vignetting. Thanks for sharing.
And the maker is Ann Wessling, and that ends our critique for the tonight. Please thank Douglas and Chris.